Hey guys, welcome to AP US History with Lennox, and today we are still talking about Washington's administration, but we're focused on his foreign policy. You see, when Washington took office, being the first president, he had to create what the presidency was going to be all about. He also had to decide what America's role in the world is going to be. We're a brand new country. We're young and we're just getting our feet wet. So he really wanted to tread lightly. He didn't want to overdo our foreign involvement. Now, our revolution was over. We beat the British. Man, we cut our teeth and won that war, and now we were a new country in the world. Yet we had influenced so many other countries, especially France. In 1789, the French Revolution began, and honestly, it was spurred on by what happened here in America. And a lot of Americans, including Thomas Jefferson, said, hey, look, they want to be just like us. And because of that, we need to get behind them. But his nemesis, Alexander Hamilton, said, yeah, but they're not us. And even though everybody wants to be like us, let's face it, they just can't. And because of that, we should stay out of it. So what we see is a very distinct divide between Jefferson and Hamilton once again. These are the things that are leading to our two-party system in America. You had Jefferson, who supported the French Revolution and says that we as a country should as well, leading the Democratic Republicans. Yet on the other side, the Federalist Party is being led by Hamilton, who said, no, we should oppose the French Revolution. Now, Hamilton's coming from the standpoint is he's putting together this whole financial package for the United States to get us out of debt. The last thing we need is to get involved in another war and incur more debt. On top of that, it's no longer just the French Revolution. This war has grown monumentally across Europe. You see, other European monarchies saw what happened in America. They saw what happened, or is what is happening in France, and the last thing they want is a revolution on their hands. So basically, all of Europe declares war against France, against the French revolutionaries. Washington's in a pickle, if you will. He's got to figure out what to do. Remember, the French had supported us during the American Revolution, so they're expecting us to step in and give them a hand. Yet, all this going on with Europe and our debt and everything else, he's like, this is the last thing we need. So he is actually going to issue a Neutrality Proclamation. So this is what Washington said. He said, as there's this state of war that exists in Europe between all of these powers and France, it's in our best interest if we just stay out of it. We'll stay friends, but we'll also stay impartial. You guys are kind of in this on your own. We're not taking sides. This idea of neutrality is going to become one of Washington's lasting legacies. In fact, throughout the 19th century and even partly through into the 20th century, America is going to remain on the neutral front of any type of world affairs. His proclamation defined what our policy would be going forward. And that policy remained intact until World War II. It's going to be FDR running for his third term as the president, who promises in 1940 that your boys are not going to be sent into any foreign wars, trying to maintain that idea of neutrality that Washington had imposed on our country. But as we all know, several months later, the United States is going to be embroiled in World War II. Now, that doesn't mean France gives up on trying to get us involved in the war. The French ambassador to the United States, who we call Citizen Genet, is going to come over to the U.S. and is going to make an appeal not to the government, but to the people. He is going to start hiring privateers. These are privately owned merchant vessels that he is going to hire and then press them into the French Foreign Navy. In doing this, our government sees this as an absolute insult. Here comes this foreigner into our country trying to rile up the American people to get them behind a cause, basically going against what our government had put in place. And even though Jefferson supported the French. He did not support Citizen Genet. His lack of protocol, his basically thumbing his nose at Washington and his government by trying to go around them, was seen as an absolute dismissal of who we were as a country. So when Hamilton says, dude, the guy's got to go, Jefferson's like, yep, he's got to go. All of this leads to Jefferson's resignation. He can't handle the idea that the United States is not supporting France. And you got to understand, Jefferson served as the foreign minister to France for the United States during the American Revolution. While there, he gained a huge appreciation for the people as well as their cause. And so when Washington turns his back on the French, and honestly turns his back on the alliance that they offered us during the American Revolution, it was too much. So he will resign and return to his home in Virginia of Monticello. But don't worry, he'll be back. He's going to be running for president once Washington steps down. Other things that occur during Washington's administration, it wasn't all centered around France. We also had to deal with England. Now, we had signed the Treaty of Paris of 1783, and in that, England promised to leave our country, respect our independence, and just go about their business. Problem was they never left. They were still in all the forts on the western frontier. You know those same forts that they took over when they beat the French in the French-Indian War? They're still there. So Washington is going to send John Jay to negotiate a treaty with England. In this treaty, Britain is going to agree, again, to leave the forts on the western frontier, and in exchange, we're going to make them our most favored nation with regards to trade. We're basically reestablishing our relationship with England to trade our goods, our raw materials with them, and we're making them our number one trading partner. Seems like they're kind of getting the better end of this because we're giving them most favored nation trading status, and they're just saying they're going to live up to an agreement they had made some 10 years earlier. I don't know. I guess that's foreign diplomacy. A lot of people were really upset with this treaty, though. They recognized that England had been getting away with just basically ignoring the promise they had made to us earlier. John Jay is not going to be seen as much as a hero. Thomas Jefferson is going to call it all out. Obviously, he opposes this. He's a Francophile, meaning he supports the French. And here we are giving England, the enemy of France, most favored nation trading status. That ain't good in Jefferson's eyes. He said the Jay Treaty strengthened economic ties with Great Britain, but it's causing even more tension with France. And think about it, though. France got us out of the war with England. If they hadn't joined up with us, we probably would have lost. So I think Jefferson has a standing here. My opinion, but just looking at on the surface, makes sense. And the people of the United States also agreed. They're going to start burning effigies to John Jay. Someone once reported that they could march all the way from New York down to the southern states, and they would be lighted along the way by the burning of the effigies to John Jay. There was that much anger about this treaty. Just a constitutional reminder here, the executive branch has the power to negotiate treaties, but it's the Senate who ratifies them, basically approves them, because that's what ratification is. It's official approval. And in order to get that done, 2/3 of the Senate have to advise and give consent to that treaty before it becomes official. Well, the U.S. Senate voted, and they ratified it by a vote of 20-10. You only need 2/3. It's not 2/3 plus 1, so that 20 out of 30 gave President Washington, John Jay, and the English the ratification of Jay's treaty. Another treaty that's going to be negotiated under Washington's administration is Pinckney's treaty. Thomas Pinckney from South Carolina is going to negotiate this with Spain in 1795. Now, if you remember correctly, Spain had fought with us in the American Revolution. They had joined France in coming to our side to defeat England. Mostly they gave us supplies and money, but in exchange they got control of Florida based on the Treaty of Paris of 1783. They also had control of the Mississippi River because they controlled all of the Louisiana Territory. Now, they had promised us free navigation, but that wasn't really happening. And so Thomas Pinckney is going to go to Spain and try to renegotiate these terms to try to get us back to kind of a good relationship with Spain. The territory that was disputed is this little block right here. It's kind of just north above what we would consider the Florida Panhandle today and part of modern-day Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. What's going to happen is Spain is going to resolve that we should get that land, and they're also going to give us free navigation along the Mississippi River. One more thing that they gave us was what's called right of deposit in New Orleans. Basically, that means that our goods that are going to be going up and down the Mississippi River, we have the right to store them. You know, basically think of a ship coming down the Mississippi. They unload their goods in New Orleans, and then another ship picks it up. This is Spanish territory we're putting our materials, our goods in. So we had to have the right to deposit those goods in Spanish territory and then get control back of them. Washington's going to serve 2 terms. This is going to be a precedent that he sets for all future presidents. Basically, a 2-term limit on how long you'll serve as president. Now, this 2-term limit is not going to be official until 1951. Almost every single president followed this precedent, with the exception of one, and that would be Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was actually going to serve 3 full terms and be in the midst of his 4th term when he passes away. In 1951, Congress in the United States are going to pass the 22nd Amendment. It's the 22nd Amendment that limits a president to a total of 2 terms in office. On his way out, Washington is going to leave one bit of advice for the continuance of our country. Seeing what was going on in his administration, seeing what would happen in his first 8 years as the president, he's going to advise Americans to avoid political factions. That's political parties. He's like, that's not what our country needs. So avoid political parties. Number 2, stay out of debt. He saw the struggles that Hamilton had with the Democratic Republicans in trying to negotiate a way to bring the debt to an end. So he said, you know what? Just stay out of debt. And finally, this whole neutrality thing, stay out of foreign entanglements. There's no good if we cross the ocean. Well, it seems like the best ideas die on the road to good intentions. While Washington was giving us good advice, it's something we never followed. Since his presidency, we've always had political parties. Yeah, we've had times when a single party controlled things for a while, but we've always had another party in the wings. Debt, we're in a constant state of debt that grows every single day. And with regards to foreign entanglements, we did stay out of them for a while. But after World War II, we became a world power, and now we are the world. I mean, we're involved in just about everything. So though it was a great idea, nice dream, it just didn't happen. This is going to lead us to the Adams administration, which will be our next discussion. And what we're really going to see with John Adams is, first of all, how do you follow Washington? And second, the Constitution is going to take a little bit of beating, but that's coming up. Thank you for watching. You're always welcome to watch it again if you missed anything. But other than that, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.